Welcome to this week's VA Vortex training. If this is your first time here, my name is Rebecca Morassutti, and I am a virtual assistant mentor and VA business strategist. And if you're watching this video today, I'm assuming that you've read the email and you know how important this song is to me. But I'm not going to rap it today. I'm sorry. I know. Maybe another time, but I did get really excited there playing that for you. I'm not going to lie. So today we are talking about the fear of failure. And if you read through the email, you know that I had a borderline terrifying experience of rapping Eminem's Lose Yourself in front of a live audience, potentially running out of breath, actually pretty much almost running out of breath, and completely bombing the entire thing. And it was something I really wanted to do. Guys, you have no idea how big of a dream rapping that in front of real people, like in front of other people other than like my mom, was. I was obsessed with Eminem, all right? To the point where I would literally wait until an Eminem song came on the radio and then I would record it on the tape, okay? And this might be dating myself here, but there was a time, okay? There was a time in a land long ago where you actually could play the radio in the background and you could have a tape, okay, in your like CD, well, it wasn't really a CD player, was it? I guess it was like I don't even know what you would have called that. Your tape player had a built-in radio, okay? I feel like this was not the purpose of this video, but your tape player had a radio, and when a song came on the radio, you could record it. You could record it on a tape, so then you could play that song over and over and over again. And I would sit for hours and I would wait until an Eminem song came on the radio and I would record it. All right. Now, at this point, CDs were a thing, but my family did not have a lot of money growing up. Okay. And also, I really wanted to be able to play it in our car, which did not have a CD player. Remember, we did not have a lot of money. So we had an older car. I wanted to play Eminem in the car. And the only way I could do that was by recording it onto a tape. That was how much I wanted to listen to Eminem when I was younger. And I knew every single song like the back of my hand. I knew this song for years, inside and out. And that didn't even really help, okay, when it came down to it, because my fear continued to hold me back. And it wasn't the fear that I couldn't do it or I didn't know the words. It was the fear of me ultimately getting up there and totally failing and making a huge fool of myself. The fear of failure is something that stops us from not only doing big, crazy spectacle situations like rapping an Eminem on a karaoke stage, but it also is the same fear that stops us from landing our first client and building our VA business. It can even be the same fear that stops us from making even an investment into our business because we feel like, well, what if we aren't able to commit to this? What if we fail? What if we don't put the things that we're learning into practice? There are so many places, especially as new virtual assistants, where this fear of failure can take over. So what we're going to talk about today is this idea that fear really is, especially when we're starting out, a cycle. And this cycle is something that must be broken. It's a cycle that only you can break. And we're going to talk about how you can break that cycle today. So first I want to talk about, from a very high level, there's two different kinds of fear. So let's just talk about fear first. So there's two kinds of fear. There's situational fear, which is like a lion chasing you. Okay. It's like going on a safari in Africa, the lion like seeing you and then coming and chasing after you, and you potentially may die. Okay. That is situational fear. Then we also have psychological fear, which is the fear of, let's say, reaching out to a potential client, or the fear of telling somebody that you're even starting a virtual assistant business in the first place. These psychological fears are really the main reason why we're stopped, right? Why we stop ourselves from moving forward and doing what we actually want to do. So there are three kinds of fear. There are 3 kinds of psychological fears. There are more, but these are the most popular ones. The first one is fear of change. All right. We have this fear that, okay, like everything's going to change. I don't know how it's going to look. You know, what if I get clients and maybe I won't like it? We have all this. We also have the fear of failure, which is what if I start this whole thing? What if I invest money into it? What if I spend all my time and energy building it and then ultimately I don't find any clients and I fail? And then there's a fear of risk. Right? Becoming an entrepreneur is risky. It's only for the lucky people, right? These are all things that we think. These are all thoughts that play in our mind. I know they played in my mind, and I'm pretty much guaranteeing that they've played in your mind probably once or twice. Am I right? So how do we actually start overcoming psychological fear? There's only one way to overcome psychological fear. Do you know what that way is? The only way that we can overcome psychological fear is by changing how we think about the situation that's causing the fear. Okay? So again, it's nothing else. This is the only way. Okay? The only way that we can break this and start overcoming it is by changing how we think about the situation that's causing the fear. All right? Now, what happens when we start to think about starting our virtual assistant business? Well, probably at first we're a little bit excited, right? We're like, okay, I want to start a VA business. I've seen all these other people online doing it. It looks like they're making a lot of money. I know this girl, Rebecca, she's living in her van. She's like living her best life in Mexico right now. That's what I want to do. If she can do it, I can do it. And that is a 100% correct assumption. Okay? And we're really motivated to start, right? And then it gets to a point where we're like, something changes. So what is that point? How do we actually get there? For me, understanding these cycles is really the first step, like having this awareness, right? From a mindset perspective about what's actually going on. It gives me the confidence and the tools to be able to actually overcome these things. So this is why I love talking about it and giving you some more context into why you're feeling this way. Because the thing is, I think a lot of the time too, we feel like we might be the only people like feeling this way or being stuck in this cycle. This is the cycle that every single person goes through. Every single person. Okay. So let's talk about the fear cycle in our VA business and then what we actually need to do to break that cycle. So I'm going to talk about this in terms of you starting your virtual assistant business. I'm going to assume you don't have any clients right now. Potentially you're still at a 9-to-5 job. But this cycle that I'm going to go through can also apply if you already have a client, if you want to increase your rates. The same cycle is going to apply. So the first little piece of the cycle at the top here is discontent. Okay. So this is the whole fear situation. So we're discontent, right? We grow increasingly unhappy and discontent with some area of our life. In this case, likely it's your current job, right? It's your current job. It's your career up to this point. We are like trying to make it work, right? We're hanging in there. We're tolerating things that maybe we shouldn't be tolerating. We're ignoring the fact that we haven't been able to take vacation in 2 years or that we have to work on the weekends all the time. We're trying to repress our feelings. Okay, we may even have some strong emotional feelings about this. And generally we deal with the circumstance. Okay, why do we deal with the circumstance? Well, because it's comfortable and familiar and we fear the change. We fear the change. So the first piece is this discontent. All right, so are you feeling discontent right now? I want you to really start to think about, I don't want you to just listen to me. I want you to start to think, okay, yes, that's how I feel. I am in that stage of the cycle right now. I am in the discontent cycle. So we're discontent. And then we reach a breaking point. Okay. So this discontent eventually builds high enough that you cannot take it anymore. Okay. You reach a breaking point, whether it's through you just being physically, emotionally, mentally exhausted from working your 9-to-5 job, or maybe there's some sort of event that's occurred that really triggers this breaking point. Maybe you asked for a raise and you didn't get it. That was my story, right? My breaking point was that I had asked for a raise and it was a very small raise and it was a raise I was promised I would get and then I didn't get it. That was my breaking point. So then first remember the cycle. The first piece of the cycle is being discontent. Then we hit a breaking point. And then after that, we make a decision. Okay. You decide that you're ready to change. You decide that, okay, this is it. I'm going to start my VA business. Okay. This is the last straw. This is the final thing. This just is the icing on the cake. I am getting out of here. Okay? We declare that we're no longer going to tolerate this horrible situation, this soul-sucking 9-to-5. All right? We take the first step toward change. Okay, so likely now at this point, you're like, okay, I need to get out. What am I going to do? I need to quit my 9-to-5. I need to find something that I can do online. Maybe I've been looking at multiple different kinds of businesses I can start online, but I need to find one that's really going to work for me. Okay, you know what? Maybe I think I'm going to become a virtual assistant. I think that sounds like something that I could do. I think I can use the skills I already have to do that. It's going to be the fastest way for me to start my own online business. I make the decision. Okay, and now I'm excited. I have hope. I'm like, okay, I'm starting this business. Then what happens is that pretty much immediately after, okay, shortly after or almost immediately, you feel these very exciting feelings of starting a business. Okay, you feel that excitement. You encounter fear. Okay. You become anxious about the idea of change. You start coming up with all these stories. What if I don't find any clients? How am I going to quit my 9-to-5 job? How am I actually going to make any money? Am I really going to be able to travel? Is it even real? Is this a scam? We start doubting that decision. Okay. And what happens here is both options now look bleak for you, right? It's like, okay, I'm either going to stay stuck in this horrible job, or I'm potentially going to get like scammed and I'm not going to be able to succeed in business and I'm going to be a failure there and I'm going to be unhappy here. Okay. You feel helpless. You feel empty. You feel overwhelmed. You feel like you have no idea what you're actually going to do next. Then what happens is the next sort of piece of this cycle is what I like to call amnesia. Okay, how many are you in the amnesia phase right now? The fear of change grows strong enough that it makes that original situation, it makes your 9-to-5 job look better than you thought. Right? From like a few steps ago in this cycle, you were ready to leave. You hit a breaking point, but now you've encountered this fear and it makes that original situation look maybe a little bit better than you thought it was, right? You perceive the original situation as less anxiety producing than that change that you need to make. So, well, you know what? I do have a lot of vacation days, so I shouldn't give that up. I do have, some benefits. I guess I shouldn't give that up. Maybe it's not so bad. Maybe working, I could be working Saturday and Sunday and not just Saturday. It's not that bad, right? We talk ourselves out of the thing that we want. Why? Because we're used to it. Okay. We're used to that original scenario. We're comfortable. It's familiar. And another piece of this is your job at this point has likely become a part of your identity. Right? Your 9-to-5 has likely become a part of your identity. And it's hard to let that go. There is resistance in letting a piece of you go. So you temporarily forget, right, why you want to change it so badly in the first place. You forget about that breaking point. You talk yourself out of it. And then what ends up happening is you end up backtracking. Okay. So essentially what that means is you rewind back to phase 1. Okay. You go back, or stick with your 9-to-5 job. Okay, if you haven't left yet, you're still staying at your 9-to-5 job, even though that's something that you can't do, even though it's something that you want to change. Okay, but at this point now, you've backtracked and you've talked yourself out of actually making that change because of this fear that has come up. Okay, in this fear cycle. Now, like I said, this is a cycle. So you're going to backtrack, but then eventually you're going to get discontent again. All right. How many cycles have you gone through? How many fear cycles do you think that you've gone through at this point? Right. It's like, okay, yeah, like I'm going to start my business. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Oh, but I might not get any clients. Okay. Never mind. My job's okay. Okay. Like I'm just going to stay here. But again, a few weeks later, you're continuing to dream of the freedom that that you deserve. Okay. You deserve this. You're made for more. Now, what happens is this cycle, the more that it happens, and you probably recognize this, if we're being honest here, are you being honest with yourself? If we're being honest here, it keeps getting worse and worse and worse. It keeps getting more extreme, right? That fear, the interesting part is all aspects become more extreme too, right? It's not just like the discontent that becomes more extreme, it's the entire cycle. So yes, you hit that discontentment phase and then you hit the breaking point, and that now you're like, no, okay, I know 3 months ago I said it was it, but now this is really it. This is it. This is like the ultimate breaking point now. And then what happens pretty much immediately after that, we make the decision and the fear creeps in, but now the fear is even stronger than before. The fear keeps getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and you stay stuck in this cycle. Okay? So how do we break the cycle? How do we break the cycle? Well, there's only one way, right? Like there's only one, in theory, there's only one way that we can actually do this, and that is by changing the way that we think about this situation causing the fear. Okay, so if we start thinking about the situation that's causing the fear, right, there are sort of two ways that we can arrive to that point, to where we're actually starting to think about the situation. The first way is that you are actually pushed to a breaking point that is severe enough to push you through this change cycle, that you complete, like let's say you get laid off. Okay, let's say you get fired, potentially even, okay? An extreme circumstance happens, and because of that extreme circumstance, right, you see that you actually need to access this different version of yourself. You see this higher self, okay? You know that eventually you're going to hit this breaking point and that you are going to be able to pull yourself out of it, right? The other way that we can do this is also by being very, very, very honest with ourselves about the situation. Okay, so one way is a situation that maybe we can't control, right? Which is the extreme pain. We hit some sort of breaking point, or maybe we lose our job, or maybe we get laid off, or maybe, many things can happen, right? Maybe we're forced to quit because we need to take care of a loved one, whatever it is. Or we have this introspective experience that's like, I'm stopping myself from changing, okay? That there's actually a part of you that might not want to change, okay? That we're comfortable with our habits, that there is a lot of fear that's holding you back for sure, and because of all that, you're extremely unhappy, and you don't deserve and you can't continue to be that unhappy, sorry. The weird thing is that we're in a routine, right? We're almost like stuck in this situation, stuck in this comfortable routine. It's almost like we're addicted to this idea of being comfortable and not pushing ourselves outside of our comfort zone. And once we can reach this level of self-honesty, we can actually choose to start to think about the situation in a different way. Okay? So let's take a look at the fear cycle. So again, if this fear cycle is happening, and we need to change the way that we're actually seeing the fear, we actually need to understand this fear in a different way, right? We can start to break this cycle. So if we are going through the cycle again, we're at the discontentment phase, all right? We're growing unhappy with our job. We know we need to make a change. We're hanging in there, okay? We don't really want to change. We do want to change, but we also don't want to change, right? It's this weird balance that's going on, okay? We eventually hit a breaking point and we need to make this decision. Now you know the cycle, okay? Now you know the cycle. Now you're aware of this cycle. So the next time you're going through this, you may even be going through it right now. I want you to really be aware of this, all right? So again, first is discontentment, then it's the breaking point, then it's the decision, and you now know what comes after that decision piece, okay? So you decide you're going to take the first step forward to change. You have that sense of hope, and you know now what's coming next. What is coming next? Usually what would come next is the fear, whether it's almost immediately or whether it's shortly after. So what do we need to do to break that cycle? We need to be really honest with ourselves, okay? We need to understand why we are feeling this fear. So what I want you to do the next time that you're going through this cycle, I want you to be really aware of this, hyper aware of this cycle going on. And the moment that you start feeling fear creep in, I want you to stop. I don't want you to decide anything else, okay? I don't want you to feel like you need to go back to the original situation. We want to stop the cycle. You need to do that. You need to take charge, stop the cycle, and I want you to get out a piece of paper, okay? And I want you to start writing down why you're so scared to do this. I want you to write down all the reasons why this is going to fail. I want you to write down all of the reasons that you could possibly think of to why you're not going to be successful at this, or the things that are going to happen that are going to, force you off this track and back into a 9-to-5 job, why you can't do this. And then I want you to try to come up with solutions for every single one of those fears. Okay? I want you to start making a plan that if these things actually happen, these fears that right now are just living in our mind, but we're creating stories of the future. If these stories actually do happen, what will happen? What will happen? The more that we can start to change this perception of what fear actually is, the more we can start to understand it, the more that we can almost preemptively plan for anything bad or unknown that might happen in our VA business, the more confidence we're going to have going into it. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, no matter what happens, you are going to figure it out. Okay? No matter what happens. If you have a fear and you're like, okay, I'm going to lose all of my money. I'm going to start this VA business and it's going to fail miserably. And I'm going to put all this money into it and I'm going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt and I'm not going to have any clients and I'm not going to have, my friends and family support anymore. Like, that is a total catastrophic situation, right? That's not going to happen. But we might think it is. But what if it did? What if it did? What if it did? What would happen? You'd figure it out. You have to figure it out. You have no choice. You would figure it out, right? So I want you to pause when you get to this fear, at the fear piece of this cycle. And I want you to start writing down all those fears that are coming up for you. And I want you to start writing down a plan on how you're actually going to tackle every single one of them. That's all for this week. Let me know if this helped. His palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy. There's vomit on his sweater already. Mom's spaghetti, he's nervous, but on the surface he looks calm and ready to drop bombs. But he keeps on forgetting what he wrote down. The whole crowd goes so loud, he opens his mouth, but the words won't come out. He's choking now, everybody's joking now. The clock's run out, time's up, over, blow. Snap back to reality.